Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin, kindly set your mobile phone and electronic devices with audio features to silent mode to avoid any audio disruption during the event. Good afternoon and very warm welcome to Mr. M.R. Chandran, Chairman of IRGA Sdn Bhd and advisor to Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, RSPO, Yang Berbahagia, Tan Sri Emeritus Professor Dr. Zakri Abdul Hamid, Co-Chairman, Malaysian Industry Government Group for High Technology, MITE, Honorable Member of Advisory Board, Tan Sri Omar Center for STI Policy Studies, UCSI University, Senior Professor Dr. Phang Siu Moy, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Postgraduate, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very good afternoon and welcome to the first series of our Eminent Person Lecture with the topic of the resilience and sustainability of the palm oil industry. I am Hadi from Faculty of Social Science and Liberal Arts, UCSI University, and it is my pleasure to be your MC for today. On behalf of the organizing committee, we are thankful to all of you for taking the time to be here with us at UCSI University today. Thank you very, very much. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Senior Professor Dr. Phang Siu Moy to deliver her welcoming remarks.
Thank you very much, Hadi. First of all, a very warm welcome to everyone, including those online. I think we also have many participants who are joining us online. So, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chandran, our eminent person speaker. So this is a very auspicious occasion. He's very renowned, for his involvement in our palm oil industry. And we are very honored indeed to have him give the first eminent person lecture. Yang Bahagia, Tan Sri Emeritus Professor Dr. Zakri Abdul Hamid, honorable members of the advisory board of the Tan Sri Omar Center for STI Policy Studies, UCSI University, Yang Berbahagia, Dato' Ahmad Ibrahim, coordinator of the Tan Sri Omar Center for STI Policy Studies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the university, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this talk under our Eminent Person Lecture Series. This forms part of our effort to enlighten university staff, students, and the general public on the challenges and opportunities of Malaysia's major industries. And this time around, we're very happy indeed to have with us Mr. Chandran, palm oil industry veteran who has been with the industry for close to 60 years. He will share with us his knowledge about the resilience and sustainability of the palm oil industry. So I hope you will enjoy this talk, and please do, engage in the discussion which is going to follow. Ask him all the questions that you want, especially our young academics and our postdocs and postgrads. Please make use of this opportunity. And also, it is not often that we get to meet a person of his stature. So please do not miss this opportunity. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Senior Professor Dr. Phang Siu Moy, for the opening remarks. To start the lecture session, I would like to welcome Professor Dr. Ahmad bin Ibrahim, professor from the Faculty of Engineering, UCSI University, and ex-co of Tan Sri Omar Center for STI Policy Studies, UCSI University. A little information. Professor Dr. Ahmad Ibrahim obtained his PhD in wastewater engineering from the University of Newcastle upon Tyne, UK, and began his career at the Rubber Research Institute of Malaysia, where he did extensive research on the development of waste treatment system for influence from rubber processing factories. He was also the director of the Market Promotion Malaysia Palm Oil Promotion Council and served MPOPC for 9 years, traveling the world speaking about the benefit of palm oil. He is now actively involved in new initiatives to develop and improve guiding policies for the advancement of science, technology, and innovation for the country. In a nutshell, he has made contribution to the nation pursuit to the scientific R&D development of S&T policies for Malaysia, marketing of palm oil worldwide, and creating public awareness of S&T through his writing in the media. He is now Professor of Chemical Engineering at the UCSI University, Kuala Lumpur, and served as a Senior Advisor, Malaysia. We will now proceed with our session on the resilience and sustainability of the palm oil industry. Over to you, Dato'.
Yeah, Mr. Chandran, he is a person without introduction in the palm oil industry. And he has been there for 60 years, not just palm oil, rubber, all the plantation, the major plantation. And I personally have known Mr. Chandran for the last 40 years. And I am actually very impressed with the way he articulates some of these points that need to be disseminated on what is happening to our palm oil industry. And of course, one of the greatest challenges is resilience and sustainability. How do we make the palm oil industry truly resilient in the face of all these challenges? Now, I would like to call upon Mr. Chandran to give his presentation. And after his presentation, I would like to encourage participants to raise questions, as mentioned by Prof. Pang, especially the young people. Find out from him what research we need. This is one of the key objectives of this talk, to try and uncover some of the research opportunities to help sustain the industry. Please, Mr. Chandran.
Thank you so much, Professor Dato' Dr. Ahmad Ibrahim. Yes, I have known him for 40 years. Now you know what my age is. Tan Sri Emeritus Professor Zakri bin Abdul Hamid. The last time we met was at the Academy Science Malaysia, where you gave a talk, and I've been a great admirer of you for many, many years, especially when you were the science advisor to the Prime Minister. I think 6 Prime Ministers, if I'm not mistaken. You are old enough to be my grandchildren, and that's a good sign. And also nice to see some of my fellow colleagues whom I have known for many, many years, like the gentleman over here. Both of us started in Harrison's and Crossfield, you know, going back to the 1960s. Yeah. And my other good friend is Mr. Joseph Tech, who is there, who has just recently taken over, just 4 days ago, as the CEO of the Malaysian Palm Oil Association, you know. And so nice of him to be here with his colleagues as well. So I realize there are more than 200, nearly 200 people online and who are watching this, so I am conscious of the time. But at the request of Professor Ahmad Ibrahim, I have constructed my presentation in such a way for the benefit of the students, the undergraduates, and the postgraduates, to give you an historical perspective of the industry, which I think many of you would not know. And secondly, also the current situation and what needs to be done for the future in order to retain the sustainability of the industry. So, can I just, doesn't move the slide. Okay, sorry. Can I go back? Does this work? Oh, wait a minute. Okay. I think I got it. Yeah. Can you go back, please? It's over there, is it? Okay. No. No, I think because I've got it animated, that's why. All right. They will do that. Okay. All right. Okay. So can you go back now? Okay. Next one. Next slide. Okay. All right. Got it. I don't know whether you're able to see the screen with the lights on. Perhaps you may want to put the lights off a bit. All right. Okay. So the resilience and sustainability, as mentioned by Professor Ahmad Ibrahim, is the title of the presentation. Next. Have the next. All right. So this is the outline that I have. Talking about VUCA, I think many of you know that term by now. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. This is what Professor Ahmad Ibrahim alluded to earlier. I'm going to give you a brief history of the oil palm industry, the big picture on land use and edible oil facts, the Malaysian palm oil industry. You've heard about all the anti-palm oil narratives that goes on. Then sustainability and ESG, which has now become a very hot topic and the buzzword in the industry, not just for the agricultural industry, but all of the industries as well, and some concluding remarks. Next. Okay, this is what VUCA is all about. Have a look at that picture, how complex that picture is. So the world today is disoriented. The old order is changing. And what will replace it will be very, very different. So we need to understand the forces that are shaping the 21st century. Next. So what are the high-level developments that is increasing volatility? That is the key word here, the volatility. If you look at the global economic growth, especially the agriculture sector, it faces increasing levels of volatility. The war in Europe, to labor shortages, to climate change, high food and fuel prices. The Malaysian Consumer Price Index increased by 3.5% in June. The food index went up by 6.1%. And I think you all are aware of it. If you're eating out in restaurants or if you're tapaoing food back home, you know what the cost is compared to what it was 1 year ago. The weakening of the Malaysian ringgit. The looming security and trade war with China and Russia. Trump's America First policy is still in place, although he is no longer the president. A weakening of the EU and UK as economic blocs, especially after Brexit. So now more than ever, business and policy leaders are faced with a growing number of critical challenges as they attempt to reshape the future strategy. Now, forging a new path demands new ways of thinking. That is the critical issue. Have a look at the economic data by IMF and the World Bank in terms of GDP, what was forecast earlier this year. What I want you to look at the global at the top, 5.9 last year, this year it's only 4.4. The World Bank is about the same. But what is interesting is, look at the developing economies down there. 6.5 and 4.8. Now, ASEAN, 3.1, but you're seeing a better growth in ASEAN compared to the developed world at 5.6 as far as IMF data is concerned. Malaysia, 3.5 last year. This year, it forecast to be 5.7. Last quarter, as you know, we had a magnificent growth rate of nearly 8%. Whether we will sustain this quarter and the next quarter is yet to be seen, but the general consensus is that we will. So we are looking at 5.5 to 6% for this year. Next slide. Now, look at the commodity prices have all appreciated strongly since January of this year. Just look at crude oil, 120%. Look at soybean oil and wheat, 60%. You look at palm oil, it's gone up by nearly 55% since January. Then you got maize, sugar, coconut oil, rubber. Only cocoa and soybean meal and rice have actually reduced in prices compared to January. Next slide. Now, the EU and the US are currently engaged in two wars. A proxy war against Russia over the fate of Ukraine, a war against carbon to reach net zero. Now, both of these are conflicts, in my view, and that has pushed up the commodity prices by creating additional demand while producing uncertainty and encouraging underinvestment. Because when you get high commodity prices out there, you are going to see underinvestment. Just look at Brent crude oil, the 60% increase in the last 12 months. It went from $70 a barrel in August 2021 to 122. It has slightly dipped in July. In fact, it's 112 ringgit at the end of July. Next. Next slide. Oh, okay, thank you. I said something. All right. Look at their CPO prices, which we are talking about, palm oil. Look where it was, and this is a 25-year price graph that I'm giving you here. From 1997 to 2022, look where it was. And can you imagine in the year 2000, it was only 800 ringgit. Tuan Kasmuri will remember that. Huh? And then look at the price in 2007. It went all the way from 800 to 3,000 ringgit. Then the next year, and remember what happened in 2007, 2008? It was the global financial crisis. It went down to 1,006. Then it went back again at 2010 at 3,800 ringgit. Then it has been on the way down until, and again in 2018, it came down to 2,120. And look what happened after that, 2019, 2020, 21, and 22, where the price is today. Now, if that is not volatility, what is? So, volatility and uncertainty. This is from January 2022 to the latest price, all right? Look what happened. In January, we started off at 5,000. I don't think anyone, not the best traders in the country, would have anticipated the price would go to 6,007 in around March. Then it dipped, but again at 5,500 level. Then went up again to 7,001, which is the highest recorded, on the 29th of April. Then look at what happened to the graph. It came all the way down to 3,588 on 15th of July. Now look what happened between 15th of July and 16th of August. Just 2 days ago. Went from 3,588 to 4,180. This is the sort of volatility that you see out there. So this is what VUCA is all about, trying to manage this. Now let me move into a brief history of the oil palm, which I don't think most of you will know, except for the handful of people who are here. Because a lot of us are not aware of this, because it is not in our textbooks in the schools, unfortunately. So you have to learn this by reading a lot of other books out there. So I thought I will show you a pictorial history so that you understand it. At least you get an idea of what the history of oil palm and how it was introduced. Next slide. Okay, how many of you know where Batang Berjuntai is? Or it's now known as Bestari Jaya. You do know. How many of you out there know Bestari Jaya? Oh, quite a few of you, not bad. So it is there. It is called the Rantau Panjang. That is the road between Batang Berjuntai to Batu Arang to Rawang. If you travel along that road, you come to a small little kampong called Rantau Panjang. This is where the first seeds of oil palm was planted. And it was not planted by an Englishman, as everybody thinks that oil palm was also introduced by the Englishman. It was actually introduced by a Frenchman, Henry Fauconnier. And this was his collection of seeds which he brought from Sumatra and planted in 1911 and 1912. Next. So this palm is still standing. So I would advise you all, please go and visit that place. It is only less than an hour from KL, and take a nice photograph of this before it disappears. Because this palm is 108 years old. Can you imagine? It was planted in 1914. So the caption that I have for this is like a Rolex watch. It just does not tell time, it tells history. Now, this is the man who introduced the palm, Henry Falconer. Next. Now, he made a visit to Malaysia in 1957, and at that time he was 78 years old. Next. Now, this is interesting. This, of course, is Sime Darby. Read the bottom tagline. The first commercial oil palm estate in Malaysia, 1917. This was the estate that was planted by Henry Falconer. No, can you go back, please? This was the estate. Now, of course, it belongs, it's changed hand many times. Now it belongs to Sime Darby Plantations, which you know is the largest plantation company in the country today. Next. Now, have a good look at this picture. This is a replanting, not a conversion from jungle. It's a replanting. It was originally planted in 1917 by Henry Falconer. Today, it is the 5th generation planting. And this, going too fast. Can you go back? Okay. This is what I call, look at the planting, look at the cover crops, how it has been planted. So this is sustainability at its best. That's a point that I want to emphasize. We have adopted sustainability right from the word go. And people like Twanaji Kasmuri will be able to tell you. In the 1960s, sustainability was a key word as far as our plantation companies were concerned. We all had good agricultural practices, you know? So this is the way it was done. And now look at that planting. This is one of the best plantings that you can have. And it's 5th generation, remember that. And look at amount of nutrients that would have been taken away from the soil, but in spite of that, it is a wonderful planting. Next. Now, this is interesting. I was in Paris a few years ago doing an interview with the Harvard Business School in Paris. And they produced this document, which I have. And I always thought, all these years, that ISP, the Incorporated Society of Planters, was the first to organize an oil palm conference. But it was not. And many people are not aware of this, you know. In fact, it was done at a conference called the Colonial Agriculture in May 20, it should be 1918, not 2018, sorry. You know, in Paris, 1918, not 2018. Trials of cultivation. You can see the reading down there. Paper presented at the Congress of Colonial Agriculture, 21st of May, 1918 in Paris. That is a 4-year-old palm. And the opening paragraph of Henry Falconer, who introduced the oil palm, is in the next slide. Now, this is what he had to say. Okay, the oil palm, which is the greatest wealth of the west coast of Africa, has not been developed on an industrial basis over there. You know that the origin of oil palm is from the Niger Delta, from the west and part of Africa. Now, this is mainly due to the fact that the local population would find it difficult to adapt to the hard work on plantations. That is why I put it in red. Sounds familiar now? Hard work on plantations. That is why we have 80% foreign workers working in the plantation sector here. Now, he also goes on to say, cultivation on a big scale, industrial scale, whether it's tea, coffee, sugar, etc., is only possible in countries with abundant and suitable labor force. And the colonies in those days, from Far East, from India to Ceylon to French Indochina, that is Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos, through the Dutch East Indies and the Malay Peninsula are ideally suited. Then he goes on to say something very interesting. More than 100 years ago, the plantation founded with European capital have developed there an extraordinary manner in such a few years. One wonders whether such a result could also be achieved with the oil palm. Then he says, as palm oil and palm kernels are in ever increasing demand. And would you believe that statement today is very, very true, 100 years later. So now let me move on to the big picture of land use and edible oil facts. Next slide. Okay, this is the big picture of the global land use. You know, the total land area in the world, I don't know how many of you know this, is 13 billion hectares. 13.4 billion hectares is the total land area. Now, of that, the pasture land is about 2/3 and arable land is 1/3. So if you look at the land under oil palm, it's about 27 million hectares today. Now, what does it represent? 0.54% of the global agricultural land. But we produce 38% of the global oils and fats production and 58% of the global trade. Now, look on the left, the Malaysia scenario. It only represents 0.12% of the agricultural land, 0.12%. We only have about less than 6 million hectares. Now, if you go into the world of demand, okay, going back, and 10% of the production and 20% of the global trade. What you see here is the kilograms of oils and fats per capita consumption per year. It has gone from, in the last 1988, it was about 15. Takes a while. Okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. You look at 1988. The consumption per capita was around 15 kilograms, oils and fats. This includes animal fats, including your butter, your cheese, etc. Right? It has gone up to nearly 30 kilograms in 2018-29 currently. So there is a correlation between increase in income and increase in oils and fats. Increase in calories, in other words, as well. Now, look at the figure there in terms of population has grown from 5 billion to nearly 8 billion in 2018-2019. And the middle class is the most important one, because the higher the number of people in the middle class category, you have higher income of food as well and higher calories as well. That is 2 billion people have moved in that 30 years from 1988 to 2018. Now the forecast to 2050, as you can see, we're going to have a population of 10 billion, and we will need 375 million tons of oils and fats, whereas at the moment, it is only around 230. And remember this, 35% of the world's population's calorie requirements can be met with palm oil. This is an important fact to remember. Next. Some facts. Now, this, I believe, to the students here, you need to remember this when you are being approached by anybody to say that we are the culprits destroying the forests. Let me put these facts to you. These are pure facts. In the last 150 years, 27 million hectares have been planted with oil palm. Okay? Total planted area out there in the world, Indonesia, Malaysia, Papua, Thailand, Papua New Guinea, Thailand, West Africa, and South America. Altogether is 27 million hectares. Much of this has been converted from other tree crops like rubber, cocoa, logged over forest, etc. Now, in the last 10 years, 15 million hectares of soybean have been planted just in Brazil and Argentina. The earlier one I talked about 150 years. Now we are looking at the last 10 years, 15 million hectares. Now, every year, about 11 million hectares of forests are cleared globally, and 2.7 million hectares of forests cleared just for cattle grazing, only for cattle grazing. So, forests have been cleared to plant crops, including oil palms. Nobody is going to deny that. But the support, what we need to do today is to ensure that we grow crops sustainably and focus on raising yields, productivity, in other words, productivity per unit area or productivity per hectare. Next slide. The global demand for vegetable oil, as you can see there, it's growing. And you can see palm in that blue line there. From 2004, it was around 32, 33 million tons. It has gone up to nearly 80 million tons. Soybean is growing. Rapeseed and sunflower, the 4 major oils out there. Next one. Now, why is palm oil so popular? Look at the land requirement to produce 1 ton of oil. Palm oil only requires 0.26 hectares. Rapeseed requires 1.25, nearly 6 times more. Sunflower oil requires 1.4, nearly 7 times more. And look at soybean, it's nearly 8 to 9 times more hectares. So in terms of productivity, palm oil is probably the most efficient edible oil crop out there. Next one. Now, in terms of production and exports, you look at the scenario in 1990, the total production of oils and fats was around 81 million tons. Today, it is 200 million tons last year. Look at the share of palm oil in 1990, only 13%. Look at the share last year, it's gone up to 38%. Now look at exports. In 1990, it was only 23 million tons. Last year, it was 87 million tons. And look at the share of it. Palm oil was 36%. Today, it is 58%. So ask yourself this question. If palm oil was not developed the way it was in Malaysia and Indonesia, which is the 2 major exporting countries, how would we have met the demand for oils and fats for human consumption? That is the point that you need to remember. So we have grown, in the production has grown, sorry, just go back please. We have grown by 150% in the last 30 years, the production. That is an average of 4 million tons per year. And the exports have grown up by 280%. Production only grown by 150, but the exports have grown by 280%, or 2.2 million hectares, 2.2 million tons annually. Next slide, please. Right. Now, this is interesting. There are only a handful of countries out there who are net exporters. Who are there? The green line, green bar out there. Indonesia, Malaysia, both in terms of palm oil. Indonesia also a bit of coconut oil. Argentina, basically it is sunflower oil and soybean oil. Brazil, predominantly soybean oil. Ukraine, sunflower oil. Canada, both canola and a bit of sunflower. Philippines is coconut oil. And Russia, again, sunflower oil. That is the green bar. But look at all the other countries, major countries, the highly populated countries like China, India, the EU, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and others. They are all net importers. That is the point that you need to remember. You know, and you know what happened a few months ago when the prices went sky high and hit 7,000 ringgit. Indonesia put a ban on export of palm oil because Indonesian president wanted to control the domestic price. Otherwise, the housewives in Indonesia would be paying a very high price for palm oil, which they cannot afford. Hence, the ban was imposed. You know? So, when you look at it from a production and export point of view, you can see it is basically Malaysia and Indonesia who are the major exporters of oils and fats. Next one, please. Okay, just to give you a snapshot of the Malaysian oil palm industry. All right. Now, this is very unique, our structure of in terms of ownership is concerned. You look at the pie chart on the left, you see the private and government and state agencies, they own 73%. The independent smallholders, 15%, and the organized smallholders are 12%. Now, who do I mean by organized smallholders? I mean the FELDA, FELCRA, RISDA, SALCRA, SLDB, you know, Sabang, etc., in Sabah, etc. They are the organized smallholders. But what is of interest is this. There are 42 listed plantation companies in Kuala Lumpur Stock Exchange. Now, let me tell you something. There is no other stock exchange in the world where you have so many agricultural companies listed on the stock exchange. America has some of the largest agricultural companies in the world. ADM, Archer Daniel Midlands, Cargill, Bunge, but they are privately owned. They are not listed on the stock exchange. But in Malaysia, we have 42 listed companies in the KL Stock Exchange, plantation companies. And then you have a look at this. Public limited are about 25%, private companies are 36%. The palm oil sector accounts for anything between 3.5 to 5% of the GDP. Not a huge sum, not like the manufacturing sector of electronics and electricals. But look at the revenue that was earned from export, 102 billion ringgit last year. This year it's going to be more than that. And remember this, 1.5 million people depend on the industry. But remember, we have no more land, suitable land to expand. And we need to cap our area at around 6 million. We are already at 5.8 million. We only have another 200,000 hectares to cultivate because we cannot afford to plant in forested areas. Most of the state governments and the federal government have put this regulation in place now. No more deforestation. Next slide, please. Now, the stakeholders involved in the industry. It is a huge industry. You have to start with the investors because without the investors, there will be no industry. Look at the upstream sector on the left. You got plantation companies, Felda, Felcra, Risda, government schemes, smallholders. Downstream, refiners, palm kernel crushers, oleochemicals, palm-based product manufacturers, specialty fats, biofuel, bioenergy. Then you have government ministries and agencies who are controlling, who are also part of the industry, like Agriculture Ministry, MOSTI, DOE, Department of Environment, MPOB, Ministry of Plantation Industries and Commodities. Then we have MPOCC, the Certification Council. You got other players like NASH, the Smallholders Association, MAPA, which regulates the wage agreements between the employer and employees. Then you have the unions, National Union of Plantation Workers and the All Malaysian Estate Staff Union for the staff. Then you have the NGOs. Have a look at the industry organizations, number of them there. From MPOC to Palm Oil Millers Association to refiners, Malaysian Estate Owners Association, etc. MPOA. That's where Mr. Joseph Tech is from. And then you have the biggest customers of all. The next one. One more click. Okay, the customers. 8 billion. That's the population of the world today. 8 billion customers out there. Then you have your speculators. Speculators are the ones who cause that volatility in the prices I showed you earlier. Then you have your exporters and importers, institutional, retailers, etc. Next slide. Thanks. All right, let me touch on this production in Malaysia and Indonesia. What happened in the last 2 years? In 2020 and 2021, I have shown that separately there. Look what happened. There is a reduction in production in 2020, 2021, and the same applied to Indonesia. Now look at the comments on your right. What is the decline due to? We had the El Nino, the drought impact in 2018, 2019, which has a severe impact on production. Therefore, reduction in fertilizer application 2018, 2019 because of the prices, because we had low price environment prior to that, prior to the 2020, 21. Then you have the big issue of manpower disruption in Malaysia due to COVID-19. That has impacted harvesting intervals and poor field upkeep. Then we had the La Nina in 2021 contributing to the floods and delayed harvesting. Now, in 2022, I don't think we are going to perform much better than what we did last year. If I look at the FFB yield outlook for the second half of this year, it is still weak, and we are still confronted with labor shortages. And there is lack of growth in Indonesia, which is a cause for concern, and high fertilizer prices because of the war between Russia and Ukraine. And the logistics costs have gone sky high, which is a big challenge. Next slide. Okay, this is my projection. I've given you what it was in 2013, the total planted area, total mature area, the yield per hectare, which was actual yields, and total production. 19.2 million tons in 2013, 19.96 in 2015. Look at the yield, 3.85 and 4.1 tons of oil per hectare. Okay? Look what happened in 2018. It dipped from 4.1 to 3.9. So we only had 19.52. But look what happened in 2021. It took a massive dip from 3.9 tons per hectare to 3.5 tons per hectare. And we only produced 18 million tons, which is one of the lowest productions we have had for many, many years. Direct impact of the drought earlier, and also the impact of shortage of workers. Now, my forecast is, which we need to achieve in order to remain sustainable, economic sustainability here I'm talking about, 4.5 tons of oil per hectare in 2025. It's only 3 years away. Now, can we achieve it? If we do, we will produce 24 million tons of palm oil. So my $64 question is this: can we achieve that yield? I can tell you many of the planters will tell you no, unless we completely restructure the industry and have the labor availability and the mechanization in place. Now, our former minister, who is no more with us, Tun Lim Keng Ek, he once made a pronouncement that his vision was 35-25. Now, what did he mean by that? He meant 35 tons of FFB per hectare and an extraction rate of 25%. That will translate to 8.75 tons of oil per hectare. And you look at the table earlier, we were only achieved 3.5 last year. That was his vision. Now, we do know that the best companies have achieved 5.6 tons per hectare. You know, I can congratulate Joseph Tech, because when he was the MD of IJM Plantations, he did achieve a couple of years at 6 tons per hectare, one of the highest yields in the country. And there are a handful of companies who have achieved that. Now, the actual field yield that is achievable, according to research by Dr. Hereford Corley, way back in 1983, was 10 tons of oil per hectare. 10 tons. That's the potential. But the theoretical potential yield, he put it at 17 tons of oil per hectare. And look at that. I mean, forget about the theoretical yield, but just look at the actual field yield of 10 tons and where we are today at 3.5 tons. Look at the gap that we have out there. It's a huge gap which we have to fill. And this is the point that NGOs make. Why are you going and expanding on forested land when you are not addressing your productivity? Okay? Next slide. Now, this explains it. This is a graph from Oil World and from MPOB data. Look at the improvement that we have made in the last 30 years or 25 years. Palm oil Malaysian yield have only increased by 5%, whereas the European rapeseed have improved by 45%, and the US soybean have improved by 50% in yield. It is all about yield and productivity, because that is what will address your bottom line. Higher your productivity, lower will be your cost of production, and higher will be your profit margin. Next slide, please. Now, let me move on to a very sensitive subject, which you read about in the paper most of the time, this anti-palm oil narrative out there. So let me just put this in perspective. I won't go into it too much in detail, but just to tell you in factual terms what is happening. I'm only talking here about facts, okay? I'm not going to spin any stories about this because I don't believe in spinning stories. Right? Now, I just want you to look at this picture. I put this data together based on BBC report, okay? Now, you can trust BBC. You can't trust CNN. You know, you can trust BBC because they're relatively, you know, very factual about the way they report things. Now, in the year 2019, we had fires all over the world. That was the year when the world was on fire. And as is happening today in California, in Europe, in Spain, Portugal, in everywhere else in Europe, because they're going through a heat wave, you know. The number one country was Russia, 10 million hectares. The number two was Brazil, 4.5 million hectares. Number three was Canada, 1.8 million hectares. Number four was Bolivia, 1.8. Number five was the United States. That was, most of that was the California belt, 1.7 million hectares of it. And number six was Indonesia, which is based on the Ministry of Environment and Forestry of the Republic, 857,000 hectares, which they reported, number six. Number seven is Australia. But Australia, I took the figure of Global Forest Watch, but then later I found out the BBC's report said it was 11 million hectares. So you can see what happens out there. Different news agencies, different medias, different research institutes come with their own figures. Why they do it, only God knows. Because now you got satellite images out there. You can pinpoint to 1 square meter accuracy of a land which is on fire or not. And yet you get a difference of nearly 3 million hectares as far as Australia is concerned. Of course, they call it bushfire. You know? Now, you look at this, okay? Next slide. Okay. Indonesian forest and land fires were relatively small compared to other countries in 2019. But who was in the spotlight? Indonesia. All the publicity was Indonesia. Indonesia was causing the haze problem. And yet, they were only number 6 or number 7 in terms of the number of hectares burned. And look at this table here. Between 2015 to 2019, look at the number of hectares that has been on, millions of hectares that has been on land fires. Yes, in 2015, 2.6 million compared to California and Amazonia. Look what happened in 2016. Amazonia was 1.8. And 2017, it was 1.4 million hectares. Indonesia was only 200,000. And 2018 was 0.5, and Amazonia was 1 million. And look at 2019. Indonesia was only 0.8 million hectares, and Amazonia was 4.5. But the media said it is all Indonesia, and who is the culprit? Oil palm. Because of expansion of oil palm into forested areas, therefore you were burning the land. That is the sort of anti-palm oil campaign you get out there. So I'm showing you facts, which is reported by international agencies, not Malaysian or Indonesian, just to put the picture right. Next one, please. Okay, this is from The Ecologist, the journal for the post-industrial age, very reputable journal. They presented this a few years ago in 2020, written by Louisiana Waring. Soya imports account for 47% of the European Union's deforestation footprint, compared to 10% for palm oil. This is not our report, huh? This is an independent report. So soya production is directly responsible for 5 times the amount of deforestation than palm oil. This is a fact, you know, a reputable journal which has published this. Next one. Okay, this is very interesting. I just got this the other day. I was reading through it because I read through a lot of blogs to keep myself up to date. And my colleague here, Yasmin, who is with me in the company, and she put this together. Now, this is a Nusantara blog, and it came out on 9th of August, just last week. Look what it says. 2 decades of deforestation is linked to price of palm oil. Conversion of forested land. Very interesting data. From 2008 to 2014, 2.25 million hectares of OP over 7 years, or 320,000 hectares per year. 2015 to 2021, only 0.55 million hectares over 7 years. So that means 80,000 hectares per year. Link between prices and deforestation was broken in 2021 when prices went sky high. Now look what happened in 2021. Expansion by companies, only 86,000 hectares, of which 15.5 was forest. In 2022, in the last 7 months, expansion of industrial plantation was only 27,000 hectares, of which 10,000 is forested land. Now, overall decrease is attributed to Indonesian government's efforts. You know that Pak Jokowi has been very hard on this in the last 1 year about clearing forested land for agriculture, and land and labor becoming harder to source. Cost of land in Indonesia, even in Kalimantan or in Papua, has gone skyrocketing. Cost of greenfield development, new development, is increasing rapidly. So you're not going to get your funding from the banks. Then, of course, you got pressure from RSPO, certification bodies, and ISPO, the Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil Certification Body. You got pressure from NGOs, and I can tell you this, Indonesia, there are thousands of NGOs who are keeping a watch on the industry, not just the oil palm industry, but all industries, whether it is environment, human rights, etc. And they are very effective NGOs in Indonesia. The media plays up this issue. Then you got the consumer goods manufacturers, and the consuming nations are also asking this question. Is the palm oil deforestation free? Don't think that developing world is overlooking that. It's not. It's happening in India, happening in Pakistan, Bangladesh, China, Middle East. They're also asking this question. And of course, the main one is the financial institutions. I will touch on that later. The financial institutions in Malaysia have come hard on lending money to any organization who do not follow sustainability agenda. Next one, please. This is very, very interesting, the Nusantara block. They put a graph there. Look at the industrial oil palm expansion, non-forest to plantation and forest to plantation. The black bars are the non-forest and the white bars. Look at the way the reduction has taken place, the white bar, to 2021. And look at the price of the palm oil just in the year 2000, starting from 2001 to 2021. Direct correlation here. Next one, please. Now, this is something those in the industry are familiar with. We have products, from food products to cosmetic products to children's food, etc., which says no palm oil on the bottle or container, or palm oil free, is another term used. Look at the number of products in 2012. It was only 189. Look at the way it has grown. In 2019, we had 2,020 products in these countries which says no palm oil. In 2012 to 2015, it was basically France and Belgium. In 2016 to 2018 is France, Belgium, Italy, and Spain. And then in 2019, Germany joined the bandwagon with these products. And this applies to your face cream, to your lipstick, to your all sorts of personal care products, you know, and the food items out there. Next one. Taking time. Okay, I can understand why. There's too many graphs here. Okay, this is a study that was done by Ferrero. I think all of you know Ferrero chocolates. And Ferrero is one product that uses palm fat. And they defend palm oil in Europe, especially in Italy, where Ferrero is the origin of the company. They are one of those great supporters of palm oil. They believe in palm oil and palm fat, and they defend palm oil. They did a study of various countries in Europe, also Saudi Arabia and Turkey as well, and Australia. Now, look at the study here. Look at the graphs. The blue is health, the green is environment, and the brown is social. Look at it in Italy. 46% of the people surveyed were concerned about the health of the palm oil, whether it's healthy or not. 42% was on environment, others social. Now look at France, 56, second highest after Spain. Spain, 65 people felt it was not healthy. Germany, not so much, around 34 to 39. Look at Australia. Their concern is more on environment, 56%. Look at Poland. Now, United Kingdom is interesting. After all, they were our colonial masters and who planted a lot of the rubber and oil palm in this country, but only 21% was concerned about the health. But 35% was about environment and 27% on social aspects. But look at United States. Of course, the consumption of palm oil is very, very small in the United States, but their concerns are very less in terms of health, environment, and social. In terms of health, I think Professor Ahmad Ibrahim will be able to tell you what happened in the mid-1980s when the soybean lobby attacked palm oil and called it a tropical grease. That was the term they used, tropical grease at that time, you know. But what I want you to focus on is Saudi Arabia, our big brother. Look at their concern for health, 21. And look at Turkey. Of course, Turkey, most of the consumption of oil is either olive oil, is part of the Mediterranean diet, or sunflower oil, corn oil. 38% is concerned about the health. Okay, next slide, please. This is the negative perception of palm oil out there in the European market, but it is spreading even to the Middle East. But I thought this was a very nice quote from none other than David Attenborough. You all know One Planet and Seven Worlds. You would have watched the program on Astro. And this is what he had to say, you know. The balance between our needs and conservation is hard. But we can offer a vital lifeline for our forest relatives. I think he's meaning the orangutan and the chimpanzees and the gorillas. We may be able to protect them through simple choices like buying products made with deforestation-free, sustainable palm oil. And I think this is a tremendous endorsement for the palm oil industry from none other than a person like David Attenborough. Next one, please. Okay, let me move into the world of sustainability and ESG. ESG, as I told you at the beginning, is the buzzword today. This will be my... Now, this is interesting. Huh? I think though many of you are economic students. I think you all know the Nobel laureate Milton Friedman. He wrote in 1970, that is 50 years ago, there is only one social responsibility of a business: to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profits, so long as it stays within the rules of the game. But now, 50 years later, we could not have imagined how the world of business has changed. Today, businesses confront rapidly growing movements, advocating that they also focus on promoting desirable outcomes relating to environmental, social, and governance, that is ESG, and climate change objectives, in addition to profit. Next one, please. Now, this is interesting. ESG rating, as I told you, the new buzzword for listed plantation companies. You see, valuation of plantation stocks have dropped from 20 to 25 times between 2016 2019, forward PE, to 16 to 18 times recently in the last 2 years. Why? The ESG overhang appears to cast a cloud over all the plantation stocks. Next one. So, investor pressure on sustainable sourcing. EPF, they want brokerages to focus on ESG. And look what the CEO of Bursa Malaysia had to say. Previously, when we talk of ESG, it sounded like a nebulous idea. But now it's real. We see FTSE for Good, Bursa Malaysia index growing. We see sustainable assets outperforming. So now you have a call to action that we need to take forward. He is emphasizing that. In fact, today there is a move to have more and more companies which are listed in the KL Stock Exchange to be under the Bursa Malaysia FTSE for Good. So the message is clear from the major investors and from the stock exchange. But this is interesting, this one. ESG practices key to investment. This was stated only last week by none other than Puan Nick Amlizan. Puan Nick Amlizan is the CEO of QAP. QAP is the second largest investor in the country after EPF. And look what she had to say. Sustainability element must be GLIC's priority. That's the government-linked investment companies. She gave a warning, will not hesitate to dispose of its investments if investee companies fail to better their ESG practices, including financial irregularities. No investment in companies that are in violation of widely accepted ethical norms, standards and laws with respect to human rights, labor standards, environment, and corruption. She has emphasized that. Also, no investment in companies that operate in an unsustainable manner with severe damage to biodiversity. Now, if you want to know anything about biodiversity, the eminent professor on my right is the authority on that. Professor Zakri. He has done so much of work and spoken about the importance of maintaining biodiversity in the country, the ecosystem, climate, and community. Now, this is coming from QAP. Khazana, EPF, PNB, they are all committed to similar ESG movement. So the writing is on the wall. Even the government investment bodies are now taking ESG very, very seriously, which is good news. Next one. Now, these are the issues that we are faced with. How do you go about addressing these images out there? The big orange army, palm oil resistance, stop rainforest destruction by Greenpeace. You know the NGO Greenpeace, how volatile they are. Huh? The orangutan issues, stop forest, stop palm oil campaigns in Netherlands. Now, you have this crunchy peanut butter bottles there. And what is the label on it? No palm oil. Next one, please. Yeah. You look at some of those brands on the right there, Ritz, Oreo biscuits, Hershey's chocolates. Look what they link it to. Link it to our cousin, orangutan. Very subtle images and messaging which they come out with, which a child can understand. And look at this. Burning rainforest releases 100 times the greenhouse gas of conventional forest fires. And this is a famous one statement that comes out Not. They cannot afford to when it is a listed company out there with a reputation. So why the measures against Sime Darby are leveled so harshly and without a fair chance to present its own side of the story? And why remediation efforts must be so costly and confrontational? Now, the more recent case by the US Customs Border Patrol, CBP, had highlighted some shortfalls, which have not been fully substantiated or proven to be authentic and reflective of the practices by the palm oil sector at large. CBP, in my view, and I'm saying it very openly here, is punishing harshly one of the best palm oil companies in the world. What signal does it send to those who are less committed? I know the commitment Sime Darby makes with their sustainability team. The signal is that no matter what you do, the palm oil detractors will find a reason to tarnish your reputation. That's the bottom line out there. Now, how do we go about tackling this? We need a completely new way of thinking to do this. Next slide. Okay, this is interesting. This is a study that was done by Suhakam in the early of this year, and they came out with a report on 11th of March. You know, we have this forced labor issues. In fact, the CBP's action against Sime Darby is on forced labor. It is not on environment, it is not on other things. It's on forced labor issues, you know. Now, the Suhakam study says they found only 8 out of 1,000 workers, that is the whole country, not just the plantation sector, manufacturing, service industries, etc., and construction, where a lot of foreign workers are involved. Only 8 out of 1,000 workers could be classified under forced labor. Now, in Malaysia, we have 16 million workers. In the palm oil sector, we have 650,000 workers. So if you take the ratio of that 650,000, nearly 85% are foreign workers. That means we have about 550,000 foreign workers out there. So if you take a ratio of 8 to 1,000, you're only talking about a handful of 4,400 workers under forced labor. Now, if Suhakam's assessment is credible, which I believe it is, this is not a problem that cannot be solved. It can be solved. So is the problem endemic? The answer is no. It is not endemic. You will get the odd cases here and there. A child accompanying their parents into the field in Sabah to go and assist the mother with carrying of the bunch or the loose root. Somebody will take a photograph and send it to some social media, it becomes child labor. You know, these are the sort of accusations we get. Next slide, please. I mean, I'm grateful to Suhakam for undertaking this study. So, my final concluding remarks. Next slide. Okay. Okay. All right. I think Professor Dato Ahmad Ibrahim asked me, in fact, I didn't have time. I told him to touch on downstream how to create value creation for the industry. We cannot continue, and Prof was absolutely right when I had the conversation with him, and he said we cannot continue to be a primary commodity producer. We have to create more value by going downstream. In fact, I did a session with Bang Negara Malaysia just a few months ago with the economics department of that, and they asked the same question as to why is it we are not investing in, we have gone into the mid-level, yes, but a higher level of consumer goods manufacturing. You know, this is the most important thing. That is where the value is. I'll show it to you in my next slide where the value is. Now, have a look at this. I've just taken the 42 plantation companies with the assistance of one of the banking analysts here who is here with us, who's helped me with this data. The market capitalization of the 42 plantation companies, this is as of July, just last month, is 128 billion ringgit. Okay, now I put that in US dollar and taken a value of 4.3 to a US dollar. Look at the total assets of these 42 companies, 202 billion in red there. Look at the net profits for the last financial year ending, 11 billion. And look at the total cash reserves they have, close to 20 billion, 18.9. Okay? You don't have to look at the other financial data there. Just bear this in mind, in your mind. Now look at the next slide. Just click that slowly, the next one. Okay, just look at this. I've just given you a comparison between a commodity producer and a consumer good manufacturer, all right? 42 Malaysian companies, no, just go back please, just don't click that. 42 plantation companies, market capitalization, as I told you, 129 billion, net profits are 11 billion. Now, look at Unilever, whom you all know. Okay, leave it like that. It's running. Now, look at Unilever. Look at their market capitalization for last financial year. 533 billion. It is in US dollars, I've converted to ringgit. 4.3 times the 42 listed plantation companies. Just, you know, for you who are studying economics or related subjects, just look at this. The market capitalization of one company, Unilever, is 533 billion compared to 42 listed companies in Malaysia, 4 times more. Look at their net profits. 11 billion versus 31 billion, 2.7 times. And you know that Unilever has something like 492 brands. And most of you are using their brands in everyday for food, for non-food. Now, Unilever is the largest producer of palm derivatives-based consumer products. They buy 1 million tons per year of processed palm oil, and they also buy 500,000 tons of palm kernel oil, which is basically the oleochemical industry, which goes into all the detergents, your cosmetic industry, etc., personal care products. So the bottom line is planters who are producing, whether it's rubber, cocoa, coffee, palm oil, we are all price takers and not price makers. Price is determined by the consumer goods manufacturers. They determine the price. Next slide, please. By the way, if you look at the Unilever logo on the left there, that logo, if you look at it closely, go into Google and look at it closely, it is all the products they use, including the oil palm tree and coconut tree and soybean and peas and tomatoes and everything. The images of that forms the Unilever logo. Okay. Now, my final slide, these are the challenges that the industry is facing. If you look at the planet, the 3 Ps of sustainability, planet, people, and prosperity. If you look at the planet, what are the issues? Deforestation, carbon emission, waste, orangutan, biodiversity, fire and haze, climate change and peat. If you look at people, you've got safety, health, agrochemicals, labor rights, community rights, land rights, smallholders, gender equality, and freedom of association. If you look at prosperity, you've got marketing of sustainable palm oil. You need to improve yield intensification, as I mentioned earlier, outside crop production, research, quality, certification, nutrition, traceability, food security, and innovation. So this picture, this particular cartoon here, sums up all the challenges that the industry is facing today. With that, I thank you for listening. I know I've been a bit too long-winded. If I had listened to Professor Ahmad Ibrahim, I would be speaking for another 1 more hour. You know? Okay,
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandran. Big hand for Mr. Chandran. Wow, that was, what, 1.5 hours? Or more than 1 hour? Very comprehensive coverage of the entire issue of the palm oil industry. But we can see from his presentation why the world should actually admire palm oil, because of what he has mentioned in terms of supply and demand of oils and fats, and how palm oil is actually, bottom line, we are actually positive for the environment and society. That's why in Malaysia, we used to call palm oil a nature's gift to Malaysia, a Malaysia's gift to the world. And we have been using this tagline for many years. And I see from the last slide actually sums up the areas of research that people from the universities should be looking at. Research which is going to sustain and provide more resilience to the industry. Okay, now we have time for some questions. Anybody who would like to raise some questions about the talk? I think it's very comprehensive, and we definitely is going to produce some kind of a document to put together all this information, which I think is very useful, very informative. The industry should be looking at this, and I completely agree that it's not easy to build an industry, and palm oil, at least we have shown that it is something that has made a lot of progress for the country. Yeah, any questions? Yes.
Question.
Yeah, please. Can you identify yourself? And
Hi, my name is Dr. Lim. I'm from FBM, Faculty of Business and Management.
all right.
I'm a finance lecturer there. Thank you very much, Mr. Chandran, for your wonderful talk. I have one question. There is this latest book by an accounting professor from Cardiff University, UK, published this year, 2022. It's entitled Extinction, Governance, Finance and Accounting, Implementing the Species Protection Action Plan for the Financial Markets. The publisher's Routledge. So it's published this year. So in this book, in fact, you can actually Google the preface, in the internet, you can get it there. In this book, the author, which is the accounting professor, targeted Malaysia. Malaysia is mentioned, that the palm oil production in Malaysia, and not only that, not just palm oil production, since you mentioned your talk is on palm oil, the palm oil production and also the plantation of the Musang King durian actually caused the extinction of wildlife species like the orangutan and the flying fox bats in Malaysia. So they specifically, the authors specifically targeted Malaysia on these wildlife extinction species. Do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, yes, please.
This is In fact, you know, you raised a very interesting point because that book was mentioned to me by an industry captain who managed to get a copy of it, and he mentioned to me last week about this. And coming from a professor in Cardiff University, he was utterly surprised. The ignorance of the people in some of these tertiary institutions who dish out. This is not the only one, you know, Professor. It comes from a lot of other universities as well. Study by NGOs, I'm not talking anybody else, NGOs in Sabah shows that over the last 10 years, the orang-utan population has actually increased, you know, okay? Now, I'll tell you a little story. Many years ago, we had a group of academics. They were taken to Carey Island, where Tuan Haji Kasmuri used to be the general manager. And the academics said, can you take us to the nearest forest? I want to see an orangutan. So we had to tell him, sorry, Peninsular Malaysia does not have orangutan. He said, Malaysia has orangutan. I said, yes, but that was not me, but the person who was there, the manager of the estate said, but Peninsular Malaysia, it is not native to. It is in Sabah. It is in the Borneo Island. So we had to explain to him what the Borneo Island was. It consists of Sabah, Brunei, Sarawak, and Kalimantan. That is where the orangutan is, and the rest of the orangutan are in Sumatra, not in Peninsula. It is not a native to Peninsular Malaysia. Oh, he said, oh, so that means I have to go to Sabah to see an orangutan. He said, yes, it is a 3-hour flight. You can go and see. So imagine people are coming and with preconceived notions about these sort of issues, you know. So to answer your question, I can tell you there are studies. I mean, you just asked WWF Malaysia. They are a scientific NGO. There is Conservation International. There is the Orangutan Borneo Trust, who have done and who are doing daily tracking, NGOs, who are daily tracking on orangutan population in Sabah. And they have found, in spite of the oil palm development over the last 20 years, but because of the conservation efforts of the forestry department of Sabah, actual populations have increased. It has not decreased. Yes, in the old days, when the jungles were cleared, there would have been migration of orangutan, some would have been killed, etc. But not in the last 10 to 20 years when we all became aware of sustainability issues. Now, flying fox, yes, you need forests, but I have seen flying fox in rubber estates. I have seen them in oil palm estates. They thrive in oil palm estates. So I don't see a depletion in population just because some areas of forest has been converted to tropical other agricultural crops. So, I mean, I don't think Malaysian Palm Oil Council or Malaysian Palm Oil Board are going to spend their time to refute a publication of that nature, because this is absolute nonsense, because the person should actually, instead of being in Cardiff and talking about it, he should come and visit Malaysia and Indonesia and see for himself before he makes such a comment. Because this is all cut and paste. He reads one article here and there, and they believe it is the gospel truth, therefore they cut and paste. I hope I have answered your question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandran. I have also another question based on that same book. That professor, actually, her name is Professor Jill Atkins. She also mentioned that there is a substitution of the oil palm plantation with the plantation of Musang King durian. So how do you see that? Is it true or not?
In fact, it's interesting you're asking this, because we just organized a durian seminar just last week for the benefit of those who are interested in durian cultivation. Also plantation companies who are thinking of replanting. Let me get this wording correct to you. No new forest land is going to be converted to durian. It is replanting other crops with the durian. Because in oil palm plantings in the old days, people have planted it on steep land. Now the state governments have got very strict laws about the gradient that you can use for oil palm cultivation. Like some states, is anything more than 20 degrees you cannot. Therefore, options are to plant with rubber or Musang King or some other crops. And this seminar was very enlightening to me because the research scientists who have done the Musang King and other durian cultivation said it is not an easy crop to cultivate. The amount of pests and diseases that can be incurred and the financial liability that you will have in converting. So let me assure you, no one is going to convert forested land into durian. Companies will convert when it comes to replanting oil palm. Instead of going for oil palm, depending on suitability of the soil and climate, they may plant any other crop like durian or coconut or other crops as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chandran. I'm told that also studies will show that the orangutan likes the oil palm fruit a lot. That's why the population has grown.
Exactly, you are absolutely right. It is the vitamin A and the vitamin E.
Yes, and of course we like Musang King a lot as well. Okay, any other questions? Yeah, please. In fact, you can use the microphone.
For the people on online, they may not hear.
All right.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nurul from FGB Holdings. I'm the head of food sustainability for FGB. And thank you, Mr. Chandran. I heard you speaking many times, and I think every time you speak, you never fail to impress me with your knowledge and also your ideas and suggestions. I have one question after hearing, your presentation. How do you see the impact of climate change on the productivity and resilience of palm oil? 10 years ago, we are skeptical about climate change, but now we are seeing the impact of climate change. And how do you see this for palm oil industry? And my next question also relates to palm oil. You talk, climate change. You talk a lot about, the campaign by other industry on palm oil from the perspective of health, the activity of deforestation, and also social human rights. Labor issue is a big, issue that is being labeled against palm oil players. Do you also see that climate agenda would be another weapon used to attack the palm oil industry? Thank you, Mr. Chandran.
Thank you so much, Nurul. I think Nurul is heading the sustainability department of FGV, and we just met up with some European ambassadors a few last month sometime, to talk about these sort of subjects. Yes, I think climate change is not just an impact on oil palm. It is going to be across all agriculture. It is not going to distinguish whether it's tree crops like oil palm, rubber, cocoa, coffee, tea, bananas, durians, if you like. And then you got annual crops like oil seeds, rice, wheat, barley, oats. All that is having an impact. And droughts are becoming more frequent. Flooding is becoming more frequent. Who ever thought London will be short of water? I was watching a BBC program 2 days ago, and a lady was interviewed, and she said, there is no guarantee there will be water coming out of the shower when I get up in the morning to have a shower. This is London. Can you imagine? Lakes in Europe, the Danube, the Rhine, the water levels are at an all-time low. The reservoirs, water level is at all-time low. The heat wave they're experiencing, 40 degrees, 42 degrees, unheard of. So climate change, as you very rightly said, Nurul, is a reality, although people have been skeptical about it. Thank God that President Biden has done something good. He has accepted climate change, and now he has allocated something like $500 billion to address this very issue. It will have, as I see it from my observations and from my reading, it will have an impact on productivity. And I think we are already seeing it in the last 2 years. The impact of 2018, 2019 droughts, it has had an impact on the yields, in spite of the fact that we have had labor shortage. But it also applicable to Indonesia. Indonesia doesn't have that labor shortage problem. But why are their yields also impacted? It is a direct impact of climate change to address that. Now, if you're asking me, will climate change be another weapon to be used by the skeptics against oil palm? I doubt it very much, because I think we are blessed because it's a tree crop. Because it's a tree crop, and once you plant it, it is there for 25 years. In fact, if you manage it well, it is there for 30 years. You know, in my days when I started, we only replanted when the palms are 30 years old. In fact, I know a company in Indonesia called Lonsam, London, Sumatra. They used to keep their palms for 40 years before they replanted, because they had the harvesters who are able to harvest the tall palms. But today we don't have the luxury. Therefore, we have to replant when it is 25 or 22 years old with higher productive yielding planting materials. So I would say it will have a less impact to use it as a weapon, as you say, as far as tree crops are concerned. But it will be a big issue as far as annual crops are concerned. And I think Dr. James Fry from LMC, whom you know, Nurul, has said it at one of our Bursa Malaysia conference 3 years ago, sorry. He said that in Europe, they are actually damaging their cultivation of rapeseed because they are not following the farming practice of alternating the crops. So they look at the price for next year. Somebody predicts the prices are going to be high. So what does the farmer do? He will replant with rapeseed. And remember, these are annual crops. They're only there from the time you seed to harvest. It's only 8 to 9 months. You know? And then, of course, they have a fallow period because of the winter months. So the impact, I think you are going to see, will be more on arable and annual crops rather than tree crops. I hope I've answered that.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, climate change is going to be a concern for everything, for all. But I think if you see from what has happened in the last few months, a bigger concern is conflicts. Russia and Ukraine fighting has disrupted the world supply of food and energy suddenly. So climate change, I think, of course, we'll have to deal with it. This is for everyone to be prepared for climate change. But conflicts, you cannot be ready. It suddenly flares up. So these are things that the world needs to address. But I think I completely agree with Mr. Chandran that the tree crops may be less impacted rather than the annual crops. Yes, any other question? We've got another 8 minutes. Any more? Yes, Prof. Pang, please.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chandran, thank you very much for an excellent talk. I really learned a lot. And I'd just like to comment on your statement that, actually development of downstream products, especially high-value downstream products, is very, very important. Because, I keep saying the same thing about
Professor Pang, you have hit the nail right on the head. This, you see, I remember clearly when Tun Mahathir was Prime Minister the first time, because he is the Prime Minister who drove the manufacturing and industrialization of Malaysia. And he said at one of the forums that we should not be expanding our oil palm or rubber areas. What we should do is to go outside, plant where labor is available. He had the foresight at the time, land and labor available, like Indonesia and Papua New Guinea or other countries, and import back the raw material to Malaysia to do the value addition. Now, I'm not saying that our companies have not done value addition. If you look at our integrated players in this country, the Sime Darbys, the KLK, the IOI, FGV, for example, they're all integrated. They're not just primary producers. They stop at the CPO. They have refineries, they have oleochemicals, they have biodiesel plants, they have specialty fats. But I think Professor Pang is alluding to is the real value creation. We are in the midstream operations, you know, primary producer plus midstream. But we need to go further up the value chain. That's why I showed you the example of Unilever.
Yeah.
That is where you determine the price. You see, it's a branding exercise. And Prof, you know all about branding when you were in MPOC. Once you are hooked onto a brand, if the price goes up by 5% in a year, you're still going to buy it. If a lady likes one brand of lipstick, she's not going to change that brand. Isn't it? When it's suited to her. Or foundation cream, or whatever it is. You know, or food for that matter. You know, you see the problem today is, I'll tell you one example which was actually, I'm not sure which institution wrote this. They did a survey in Malaysia of supermarkets and mini markets and retail stores. This is just on cooking oil, okay? Only cooking oil. And they went to these markets, and you know what they found? We all underestimate people who operate the supermarkets and the mini markets, you know. In fact, they have a better understanding of human behavior than a psychologist will do. Okay, now that I'm going to tell you, next time you go and observe. When you go into this mini market like TMC in Bangsar or any of those ones, you know, leave out the top ones. What is the oil that you see at your eye level? The average Malaysian woman is about 5'3", 5'4", okay? And eye level. What is the oil that you see at the top shelf? At your eye, olive oil. Exactly, Prof. Olive oil. And you got different types of olive oil, so many brands. You got virgin olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, you just name it. All are at eye level. What is the second shelf down? Corn oil or sunflower oil. And then will come soybean oil. And where is palm oil? Knife brand, Saji from Felda, right at the bottom shelf. Now you ask the owner of the supermarket, he will tell you, it's simple. What is at high level olive oil? You sell one bottle, the margin for him is about 20%. Whereas the palm oil, at the lowest shelf, the margin is only about 5% or 2%. So that is how they do it in the supermarkets. It is an art. You know, and the supermarkets also have rules which says, okay, I'm going to sell this product. Where do you want me to put it? At what level of the supermarket? You say put it at level 2. All right, I'll put it at level 2. Then it tells you, if you don't make this amount of sale in this coming week, sorry, we're going to put you into level 3. And if you don't make that amount of sales, it'll go down to level 4. That's how they do it. Because they are looking at their margin. Why should they be selling a product where they don't make a margin or it is not popular? So this is the problem that we have. So to answer your question, I don't think any one company as such has got the capital to go into to become a Unilever. But I think what we can do, and which has been done, is that we have acquired a lot of the foreign companies over the years. We have got refineries in UK. Sime Darby has a refinery in Liverpool. And I can tell you something, when I was there, I was told by the GM of the Liverpool refinery, if you eat any biscuit in United Kingdom, you can be assured it contains Sime Darby oil. 18 brands of biscuits buy their specialty fat from the Liverpool factory. So they all use it, but they don't tell you on the label it contains palm oil. They won't tell you that. They're not going to tell you. They will just say fat, palm fat. What is saturated, polyunsaturated, and monounsaturated fat, you see? Now, you look at what Golden Hope has moved. They bought over the Unilever refineries in the Netherlands, you know? So that is one way of approaching, you know? When you're making money, go and buy over this sort of downstream sector and do it. And buy it where the market is. You see, we only have 33 million people. What domestic market do we have? Indonesia has 275 million people. This is why a lot of investments are going into the manufacturing sector, into Indonesia, because they have a domestic market. They don't have to re-export. Yeah. So what we can do is be a niche player, to answer your question, Professor Pang, to become a niche player for a few products, base it on a consortium. Let the big 5 companies put in a few $100 million each, form a consortium, and go into what is the product that the world needs and produce that particular product.
All right, thank you very much. So I think the fact remains that we are not good at building brands. We compare ourselves with South Korea, for example. They have built international brands. Maybe our business school people can do a research to determine why are we not so good at building brands, especially international brands. Yeah, one last question from Joseph. We have to ask him to raise a question. He's a new CEO of Malaysian Palm Oil Association.
I just want to know by a show of hands, how many of you have been to an oil palm estate? By a show of hands. Or rather, it should be the other way around. How many have not been? Yeah? And I believe, actually, this is the war that we have. And in fact, I remember Mr. Chandran used to say before, perception is reality. And a lot of what we are going against are actually perception. I remember when I was a Cambridge student, I had friends coming over. And Cambridge graduates asking, how do you tap palm oil from the tree? How do you tap palm oil from the tree? Why? Because they're so used to rubber, you can tap latex from the rubber. They thought the tree is the same thing for palm oil. That's why the Malay will say, tak kena maka tak cinta. If you don't understand the thing, you'll create perceptions. And that's why we have a lot of misconception. Yeah? I just would like to say that from palm oil, being involved in this industry, if Chandran is involved in 60 years, I'm just half of his. I've just done 31 years. It's a long way to go. So probably the handing of baton will come about. Yeah? It's very interesting that some of you may be familiar. I wish I would have a chance one of these days to share with people as well. Maybe if he has been a baby boomer, this is a Gen X sharing. And then later we pass on to another Gen Y. So we have this intergenerational shift. Yeah? We must remember, I personally believe that we must appreciate a formula which is what's called the Cobra effect. How many of you are familiar with what's a Cobra effect? Check the Wikipedia and find out. The Cobra effect is that if you want to solve a problem, sometimes the solution they put it will make it worse. A solution to a problem become worse because of cobra effect. And it goes back, this one bit, you go back to India, there were lots of cobra then. The colonial masters wanted to address the cobras there. What they did, they gave a bounty, a solution. Give a bounty to catch all the cobra, and basically you had reduced the population. But it did not happen. More cobras were there. Why? Because the local people start to breed for cobra. Yeah? And in Vietnam, you check it out, they had a problem with rats. Again, catch all the rats, you give them a bounty, you will reduce the population. You thought that was a solution. But rats being very smelly, you just give the tail. Cut the tail and pass it around. Okay? And later, they also saw the same thing. The formula did not work. More rats came out. And why? All the rats which were cut in the tail were still running around. And they breed. Yeah? So in a way, palm oil, our friends in the West have always thought that deforestation, orang-utan, let's boycott palm oil. Let's stop them from planting. Unfortunately, that is not going to be a solution for Mother Earth, especially what Prof said, food. Because you look at the productivity, if you ever replace palm oil with another crop, for that matter, rapeseed, sunflower, soybean, you will need more land. In fact, today, if you look at it, the greatest culprit to land use is actually cattle, right? Which Chandran has shown there. In fact, they're now told by the Great Reset, all of us should be vegetarian. Yeah, so you should reduce the footprint. But so therefore, if you were to do such thing of trying to reduce oil palm, we are actually not solving the food equation of the world. We're actually making it worse for all people in the world. Unfortunately, ending with this sentence, there are always a lot of opportunists around. A lot of people, which in Malay will say, menangok di air keruh. And these are people that we have to change their perception. And for me, the academicians themselves, if you are here and you can do research and so on, fundamentally, you need to even visit the estate to start off. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Now we know why he is the new CEO. Yeah, Tan Sri may have the last word.
No, I just want to congratulate Mr. Chandran for his very illuminating talk, and also support what Joseph has just expressed. I just want to impart on us all here, Malaysians, that you need to be very aware of ESG issues, okay? And maybe many of you are town folks, and as you said, only a few would have visited estates, but I think we have to be very alert and prepared and know, because the oil palm or palm oil is that is SDG number 1 long before they are talking about Agenda 2030, okay? The SDG was formulated in 2015. But in our country, we have implemented just after independence. In fact, a world-renowned economist, Jeffrey Sachs, at one time proclaimed to the world, he spoke to BBC, saying we want to see poverty alleviation. Just look at the oil palm industry in Malaysia. But having said that, there are some problem, yeah, ESG. We are not denying that. But I think it's incumbent for students from UCSI to understand, because the oil palm is part and parcel of the well-being of our country, you know. You were mentioning just now the livelihood of about 1.5 million Malaysians depend on this oil crop. So finally, I think when people start bad-mouthing the palm oil, you must be ready to understand the issue and to defend. But at the same time, if you think there are excesses to it, we would admit it, and we'll try to correct ourselves, you know. So in some ways, that is the oil palm story. Every time I landed in KLIA, when the steward or stewardess say to Malaysians, welcome back home, you look around, you know. It's all a sea of oil palm, isn't it? That is the essence of our prosperity. So it's incumbent on students today to appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Yeah, I just want to mention that Tan Sri also will be soon part of UCSI University, and we will continue, as Prof. Fang has mentioned, to try and strive to make UCSI University one of the top universities, if not in the world, is in the region. We're already #1 as a private university in Malaysia, and we are bringing in all these talents from outside. And I hope with the future eminent person lecture, which is going to happen more regularly in the future, we are going to bring ideas and views about our industry and our future. And I hope this will put UCSI on the map of public discussion about what a university should be. Thank you once again for Mr. Chandran and Tan Sri Zakri and everyone for asking the questions. So back to you, Dr. Hadi.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Ahmad Ibrahim, and our speaker, Mr. Chandran, for the insightful talk. Ladies and gentlemen, please give another round of applause to our speaker, Mr. Chandran. Now, I would like to invite our speaker, Mr. Chandran, to cake cutting ceremony. Next, I would like to invite Senior Professor Dr. Fang Siu Moy and Professor Dr. Ahmad bin Ibrahim to present token of appreciation to our guest speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of today's event. Thank you everyone for joining us today and making this event a memorable one. We really appreciate your kind support. Once again, thank you and have a pleasant afternoon. To all VIPs, I would like everyone to the front because we would like to